Hello everyone, चलो अच्छी बात a good number of students have come. So the programming club again has brought a great event for you known as Careers in CSC. Am I audible and
Yeah.
visible clearly?
Yes.
चलो ठीक है, that's nice. ठीक है ना? So we've come up with an event known as Careers in CSC just to get you through what CSC exactly and entirely consists of. So we have a host for the event, Pratik Padalia. He's an SD2 at Accredita. He's a gold medalist at Ahmedabad. He was a gold medalist at Ahmedabad University, and he's an alumni of AU itself. And he has been in talks with the programming club, and he has helped us quite a lot when it comes to such events and such things. And I'd like to ask Pratik Bhaiya to take up the stage.
Thanks, Monish. So yeah, it is always good to be back here, and thank you for inviting me. Yeah. So today, what we'll be talking about is the different career paths that you can choose. So, like at this stage, when you are in first, second, third year, you are often confused, like where should you go in, and where would you end up after the fourth year, or maybe 2 years after having your master's degree or something else additionally. So here we'll be defining like what are the different options you have, and what all do you need to consider when you wish to choose a path. What all do you need to prepare? What all do you need to what all you will be required to do after you have entered that particular industry. Yeah, so we can go forward. Manish, can you move to the next slide? So here are some traits that the engineers typically would need to have or will build in the journey whenever they start experiencing the industry life. So they need to be problem solvers, first of all. So every engineer has to be a problem solver. You are all going to code at some point of time, maybe in the limited capacity or something. So you all need to develop the skill of coding, and you'll be called as coders. Yeah, can we go ahead? Yeah, so you all will be entering the tech world. So you'll be called the techies. And so you need to have a very important skill here of entrepreneurship. Like today, everyone is building different startups. The industry is basically built using the startups, and everyone is promoting new innovation coming up, and that needs to bring in new leadership skills. So you'll have to be leaders of this particular industry at some point of time. And in the meanwhile, you'll be inventing some new things, you'll be discovering some new things, and you'll have to bring in innovation to a great extent. And yeah, to end with, you'll have to design the whole systems. You'll be designers of the next, maybe next generation of how this tech and the industry will lead to. So yeah, basically these are kind of some of the traits you need to have, and you'll have to build up either like you should start directly from now, and maybe in the coming years will build up at least a subset of them. So yeah, next we can move up to what are the roles basically in this particular industry. And the most basic the role that everyone gets into whenever they start their careers is basically the software developer role. So this is an umbrella term for different kinds of roles, and which are listed below. So you may be a software engineer, you may be a backend engineer, front-end engineer, systems engineer. All of them typically are kind of the have the same job profile or something, where you'll be interacting with different kind of technologies. You'll be building different kinds of products, be involved with different kinds of technology, tech stacks and all. But in the end, what you have to do here is like your basic profile will be to write some codes. And on top of that, you'll also have to do something which is more important than writing code, is to review that code. So that reviewing of code is another important task that a software developer has to do. Now, how, like, this is basically the gap I see, that people are not very accustomed to reading someone else's code. So that is again something which one should consider. Like, you should be able to understand others' code, as well as it is your responsibility to write a code which is understandable to others. So it goes both ways. And yeah, so like you can look at if you are involved with some uh, maybe some open source development or something, you'll know how the this development process works. When you are working with inside a team, you'll have to review others codes. You'll have to someone else will be reviewing your code, and your basically the entire thing should coexist and work appropriately as a unit. So that is something you need to do here. Now, other things that you need to understand here is optimizations and the memory. Basically, optimize your code should be optimized in such a way that when you are writing some backend kind of a code, you need to have some, the major thing would be the response time. So your API should not be taking long. Um, yeah, you must have a very efficient kind of a coding practice where you are making the whole product very optimized, such that you have a good software user experience and at the end of the day. Now, the two terms you see in the green are somewhat related to the larger software developer role, but it has slight differences. So I'll go over them also. So the product engineer basically is has a limited kind of a involvement with the tech, the backend side of it, but it is more to do with the requirements and the business side of it. So they will come up with some user requirements, they will have some market study, and they'll be coming up with what the user actually needs to have in order to enhance the product and the overall user capabilities of the system. And the software developers will be getting those requirements and trying to act upon those requirements to solve the problems that the users are facing. And the other important role in this whole ecosystem is the SDET profile. So, or the test engineers, or the quality assurance, or whatever you call it. So these are basically this is the team where they will be validating your code, and you'll be able to have when your code is coming to before coming to production, it will be tested in such a way that are the user requirements basically being addressed or not. So is the how is the quality of the product, is whatever requirements and whatever product line we have defined on it, is that up to the mark or not. So there should not be any bugs in the way, or there should not be some sign of all the scaling aspects and everything should fit in well here. So that is basically the job. And once they give a go ahead, only then the release can be is approved, and like they are the ones who will be signing off the release, and they'll be approving that this can go ahead for the production side.
Okay, but yeah, so I just have to ask this. I'm sorry to interject, but what would be the perfect way? What would be a small, sort of a roadmap for a student? What can a student do at a college level to maybe, appear for such roles, or maybe be a perfect fit in the industry for such roles?
Right. So like basically you'll have to work on some projects regarding this. So as a maybe a college student, what you can do is get in more having hands-on kind of activities with different kind of stacks, build up some smaller applications, work on some open source projects, and that will help you get into some kind sort of understanding how the system works. And yeah, so based on your interest, whether you want to work on back end, front end, or maybe both, it might be a good start at this particular level. Okay, coming to the next part of it. So there is another important and a very major sector of this industry, which is the DevOps side of it. So what is basically a DevOps? So they are basically uh, like it stands for developer operations, and that is the bridge between the developers and the operation side of it. So they will have to take care of all the deployments. Uh, they basically treat the code as an infrastructure. So your code is going to be as an it's going to be available to everyone, and the major considerations they need to take care about here is like the security aspect of it. So you should not be exposing some critical parts to the code so that someone can come and manipulate the activities here. Or the other things can be like the deployment side of it. So DevOps is kind of a very broad side of it, and there can be different sorts of subcategories into it. Like someone can be very much concerned with the cloud operation side of it. Someone can be looking into the security side of it. Someone can be looking into the scaling side of it. And kind of the most major part of their role is to understand how does the system scale here. So if you have 100 people working with your system, you might need different sort of resources. But when it is scaled to a different level, say millions and more than that, you'll need a different kind of a whole infrastructure setup for that. So that underlying infrastructure on which your code is supposed to run is to be managed by this particular team. And yeah, as the three things are mentioned here, the scale, security, and uptime. So we have talked about the scale now. So the security aspect. So security in terms of like you should be exposing the right things. You should not be exposing some business logic to the user and allow some manipulations on top of that. And then there is the uptime. So by what do we mean by uptime is that your service should be always available at all the time to the user. And even the critical phase would be when you roll out some new updates or something. So typically there is a release manager as well who would be taking care of it, so that there is no downtime between the upgrades as well. So if you are upgrading to a newer software, there should not be any instance of time where in between which there'll be a downtime for your service. And a similar kind of a role can be considered the site reliability engineer. So they have quite a lot in common, although DevOps is a broader category, whereas reliability engineer is going to look more into the scale and the uptime of the service. Yeah, we can move to the next one. Okay. So the UI UX part of it. So this is another interesting part of the product pipeline, where they need to understand what are the user activities and how to make the service more usable from the user's end. So as it stands, user interaction and user experience. So the user experience should be seamless. It should not be that the user has to learn and to use the particular service that we are providing. So what they call is the ergonomics of the product. So by ergonomics, what we mean is that it is like where should the button be, how should the landing page look like, and how do we move, like the entire user workflow or the journey of the to use that particular feature. And so in the same terms, like we may have something like a product designer whose job is to design all those interactions. Could be some page designs, wireframes, and the overall look and feel aspect of it. And so another growing industry is the HCI industry, which is human computer interaction. So that how does a human interact with the computers or the systems is basically identified in this particular domain. Now, front-end engineer. So there is a thin line between UX engineer and a front-end engineer. Now, where the UI UX engineer is going to look more into the look and feels of it, the front-end engineer might be also looking at the main tech part of it, where he might not be involved with the how the page looks, rather the state management of it and the complex codes part of it. So here, even on the front end side, so now since there are a lot of activities done on the front end side, there is heavy code also on the front end part of it, where the lots of logic is also written on the front end part of it, and lot of computations happen on the front end part of it. Earlier when it started with HTML, it was a very different kind of a rule that the front end service was providing. But with the constant advancements in the JavaScripts and all of these technologies coming in, you can do a lot of computation and storage as well on the front end side of it. So there the front end engineer is more involved with the logic part of it than the user feels.
Okay, Bhaiya, so again, sorry to interrupt you. Then how exactly does it, for example, if a product is being formed, if you're making an application, how exactly, what exactly is the product life cycle and the cycle on this product makes, and then how do these different job roles play a different part in that product life cycle?
Okay, that's an interesting question. So, like, since we have already covered the different, the majority of the product roles. So, from the product engineer to the software engineer to DevOps engineer and also the UI UX engineer. So, I'll go over it for a couple of minutes. So, so the first is basically getting the requirement side of it. So, the product engineers come up with some requirements that the product can have. So some features and some definition kind of a thing, where they will define how should the product perform, what all capabilities do we want to have in it, and what is the user expecting from this particular product. So once we have that, we will be breaking down it into technical kind of story. So we'll be getting a different analyzing what are the different requirements here, and the software developer needs to understand what exactly is the going to be the backend part of it, the business logic part of it. So you need to bring up the business logic in order to get the so there'll be different teams coming up with different parts of the system. And once that is in, there is the user field, which will be connecting all of these different parts into a single platform, a single usable platform. So there comes the role of the UX engineers, where they will be bridging all the different services into one a single platform. And then there is also the front end side. So all of these activities can go on in parallel, where they will be putting a front end where the user will have its landing page, and how does it flow through the entire system.
Okay. So then does one choose such a field, or is the field that chooses a student?
I would say
For
it's better
example,
that
if I'm,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, continue. So basically what I meant was, basically if I'm trying to, should I try to be a UI UX engineer, or should I just focus on development and then let UI UX?
Okay, I feel you should always choose your field. You should try everything at this particular stage. You can explore out the different options you have. You can explore out all the uh, tech stacks, all the things you have, and then you can choose one out of that. So ultimately, if it's something of your choice, you'll enjoy doing it, and that would be the right process, in my opinion.
So moving on.
Yeah. So moving on to the next broader category, so which is kind of the more familiar, more hot topic, trending topic going on in this industry. So at this stage, like, I see a lot of freshers, a lot of first year, second year people coming up in the industry to solve some complex AI problems. So yeah, this might really be interesting for you all. So there are different kinds of roles here. Now, to understand what is data science, what is ML, and what is AI, So data science is kind of the broader set of it, and ML and AI are the subset of that particular thing. So now you can consider AI as the larger thing, which is dealing with something, learning out of some logics. Okay, so that is basically an AI engineer's role to understand logics, whereas an ML engineer is going to deal with only some algorithmic the mathematical part behind it. So an ML engineer's role here would be to understand the basic mathematical model behind, like, which can be applied to the data and get out some meaningful information or derivations out of it. And that derivative is basically being opted by some data which is relevant to that particular thing. And so there is a lot of feature extraction out of the data, and you need to understand what data is important to you. So there is a famous saying where it says that understanding of the data is more of an art than a science. So you need to first understand, like, you should have a good understanding of your what your data is, and that is where the most of the time is spent. Whereas, so there is another role known as the deep learning engineer. Now, how does deep learning engineer differ from the ML engineers? So whereas ML engineers are more uh, involved with the data modeling part of it, where they have to come up with an algorithm of their own and by understanding the data and figuring out how does the modeling work there. Deep learning engineers are building something what is known as neural network, and it is similar to how the brain works. So you are going to make a semantic network there, where you the model itself will be understanding it, like it will be more of a iterative learning, where the learning happens by itself via different iterations. And yeah, so that's the basic difference between an ML engineer, data scientist is a common term for both of them, and a deep learning engineer. So then there is the NLP engineer. So if you have not heard it, it's natural language processing. So understanding what the user is saying, or to basically the chatbots, the work is the NLP engineer. So they need to understand what is the exact um, type of interactiveness, or like they need to understand what the user is trying to say or define here. And so then there is some different roles, slightly different roles are the data engineers and the data analyst. So the data engineer's role is basically to structure the data, and more of deal with the storage aspects of it, and collection of data, and yeah, the data management part of it. And the data analyst is also slightly different from the data scientist role, where they need to provide some insights on the business side of it. So how can what are the analysis they are giving to the business, such that it impacts or benefits the business as a whole. Yeah, I think, okay. So since we know that we are entering into a different metaverse today, or maybe some years coming ahead, there are more and more fields coming up. So if you look at something like cloud engineer, like there was no maybe 10 years back, there was no one talking about cloud, and now everything has suddenly shifted to the cloud itself. So you might have different kinds of services. So all of it are basically SaaS services now, software as a service. So that never existed earlier. And you have different kinds of roles being evolved day by day. So when we come into the future, we'll look at more and more number of roles coming ahead. But as of today, what we see, the newer roles coming into picture are the blockchain engineers. So today we see a lot of fuss going around to use the applications of blockchain. And also here it's an interesting thing that will be coming ahead soon. So engineers will be dealing with the smart contracts or writing out um, some kind of a logic which is validated by the decentralized network. So or building the blockchain in itself. So the ledger part of it and all. So that this could be an interesting thing to explore around. Other important thing is, and I see a lot of interest in the cyber security part of it. So uh, this is again a wide topic. So a lot of it deals with the um, law part of it as well, where someone needs to understand what are the concerns or the like from a legal aspect of things, like how is the data privacy important, and what are the rules and restrictions in general, and it differs with country to country as well. So you need to understand that as well, like how can you move your data around the globe or something. As well, like you'll have a different, like there are, I see a lot of industries altogether which are trying to build up a secure framework around around your software. So there are, since there are a lot of startups coming around who may not have adequate bandwidth to look after the security aspect of it, but they can build up a product. Now if that product needs to be secure as well. So there are companies which where we can outsource our own product and they will take care of the security and all of those aspects. Also there are a lot of threat modeling teams which basically what they do is to test the service from a security point of view, that they'll bring up um, some common kind of threats that are prevailing in the industry, the common the principles or something which one should identify while developing these things. Uh, yeah, so this is again a like a growing industry, and I see that like with more and more kind of data flowing around the systems, this is going to grow in the future. And then there is another like very visually appealing kind of industry coming ahead, which is the AR and the VR industry, where with everything going from an offline world to an online world, we don't know like how is it going to turn out maybe a few years next after this. Maybe everything might be a virtual world after this. Like think of it, if you can go to your office in a virtual room where you can interact being in the different rooms itself. So that is basically where the VR comes into play. Maybe you can also build up your you can travel around the globe using by staying in your room itself. That could be another thing that could be coming ahead. For now, what it seems like is that VR and all of its applications are limited to the gamification part of it, where it's not able to scale up well in the real life use cases. But I see a lot of prospects coming here as well. Yeah, so I think I like as planned. Okay. I think we have one more slide coming in. So the important part of it is how do you choose these careers, right? So like there'll be a lot of people saying like, what is the scope in the market? What are people talking about this particular role? What is the compensation it provides? But all of these become less relevant to the last point of it, where what do you enjoy doing it finally? So try to explore in this particular time that what all are the options you have, and what do you actually like from that particular options you have, and then try to deal with like there are other concerns that are there could be like dealt with unless and until you enjoy this particular role.
So yeah, what I think is the last couple of fields that you talked about, for example, the AI ML engineer and the AR VR engineers, and specifically blockchain engineers. So
Mhm.
although these are emerging fields, as far as I know, it takes a lot of depth of knowledge to sort of cover up the fields. So in terms of that, how long do you think can it require for a person to become a proficient blockchain developer or a proficient cybersecurity expert or something like that?
So you have to start from somewhere. So specifically when we talk about some data science kind of things, it is usually preferred that someone does a master's degree on top of it, um, to add an expertise onto that particular field. When it comes to blockchain, I'm not really sure if there are enough courses as well available for a master's degree there. So I think um, you learn a lot of technologies even while working. So you can start from somewhere, and I've seen a lot of people get hired as as a fresher itself without any expertise into that particular area. So you can try explore out, and there are very user friendly developer guides for these things like Ethereum, and all of these use cases. So if you can start off somewhere and you can get a grip on it, I think it should be like adequate for landing up with a job there.
That's nice. So I guess we'll move on to the Q&A now.
Yeah. So I think I have tried to cover all the major roles we have, and then you can put up any questions here. So what I've not covered is basically the hardware side of it. Now, you could also go into the hardware where you'll be involved with some silicon chip manufacturing, or maybe some OS level, some hardware level optimizations or something. That could be another industry, but yeah, like we'll be limited to the software world of it.
Okay, so thank you, Bhaiya, for that very invaluable knowledge. And now, guys, those of you who don't know, these are questions that are put up anonymously by you guys itself, and it's available at the link that we've sent at pigeonhole.it/pclub, the one that we have sent in the message already. So, starting with these questions, Bhaiya, what could be the tips and tricks to get an STE internship off campus?
Okay. So I see that this is kind of the concern every time we have when what I've observed is from this recent years, the number of opportunities have gone up significantly. There are enormous opportunities available on campus as well as off campus, and off campus has been much more accessible from this. Once we have moved from offline world to a work from home mode, where anyways there are lesser on-campus drives, and people are looking for off-campus placements and all. I would say just keep applying, you'll land up easily. And apart from that, like try to do as many projects as possible, so that that will help you land up. Even after you get an interview call, you'll be able to crack it easily. Also do some sort of competitive coding, even though I would say everything at a balance is good. Like you should also focus on some you should focus on the development aspect as well as the competitive aspect of it, because both hold significant importance, and all your um, all the primary the coding interviews you'll have will most likely be something related to the competitive question. So that will again be useful for you.
Okay, so I guess this question moved up just now. So,
Okay.
what are your thoughts about Masters of Sciences or Masters in general?
Yeah, so as I said, for some specialized fields, it might be relevant to go for a master's degree. Now, how does it help is that not all the subjects are equally covered as part of the undergraduate, the BTech you are going through right now. And specifically talking about some data science or some courses like that, you might need some more projects, some more years of involvement, some more research on those topics. So in that case, masters helps. Now, yeah, that is basically the significance of it in this particular very specialized kind of fields. Like other things could be some network security aspects and etc. uh, Although I feel that like if you are going, like that is my personal opinion, but if you are going for a very generalized field like a software engineer kind of a profile, you need not need an MS degree for now. So people are moving to like also accepting. So Elon Musk has said that he'll be uh, going after, like he won't be looking at the degrees anywhere in the future. So yeah, I think masters, maybe like if you want to do go for research, want to understand some topics additionally, that will be beneficial. Otherwise you may not require it in general.
Okay, that's nice to know. So, another big question that has come up is how do you build a career in cybersecurity?
Okay, that's an interesting one. I haven't explored much on cyber security myself, so this is what I have like from my limited interaction with some teams. So first of all, you can start with something more like on the DevOps side of it, where you'll be understanding what exactly are you exposing out, and what are the common practices you will need to understand from a service point of view. Once you know like how what are the absolutely required things, and how what are the safe practices for deploying a service, for storage of some credentials, or maybe could be exposing out some endpoints, or and like what data can be put out in public, how to hide certain data, and giving out like some sort of view only mode to some sort of data and all of it. So once you get in like get a hold of all of it, like you can look for some opportunities in the threat modeling world, where they try to constantly look for the uh, threats that are around into the known services. So like there are also a lot many companies which have a bug bounty program. So like you can try to look at how does those bug people participating in bug bounty go ahead from it, and what are the common. So there are a lot of certifications as well in the cyber security kind of a world. And uh, there is something known as the OWASP, OWASP. So that is again they have released a common set of threats and common set of good practices that one should develop. So yeah, that can help, I think.
That's invaluable knowledge. So, thank you. And again, another say, spontaneous movement of the question. So, do you think web development is dying? Do you think that there is going to be no need for, at least based on what I can see, front end or even full stack web development?
Okay. So first of all, like the whole computer industry is a very new industry as a whole. Like we have not even entered the second generation of it. Like if you see, the whole internet came into maybe some 20 years back. Before that, people here did not even have computers at every household. So things are going to change, but nothing is going to die, is my opinion. With services like Wix and WordPress, yeah, they're providing an ease of it, but you'll still need developers for the web development part of it, where you have some very customized, very niche kind of use case required, and these are just platforms to bring out um, something which is very commonly used. So they'll give it's a service to put out something, some of your information onto it in a templatized manner. But those templates cannot be used into all the systems, like the complex part of systems, and that is why I think there is a long way for it to evolve. And yeah, we also have lots of new stacks coming up every 2 years. So like if you see, there is a different version of JS altogether after say 3 or 4 years. Like you came up with some HTML some years back, and it has evolved to something like Angular in the recent years, and now coming up to Vue and all of it. So yeah, these technologies are going to evolve. The whole industry is going to evolve, but nothing is dying off, is what I would say.
Okay. So I'd now like to open you up to, whatever question you'd like to choose. Are there any interesting questions that you'd like to answer specifically out of these,
We'll go over it from
one by one?
yeah. Okay. Okay,
Okay, so
this is an
then
interesting
this
one.
is another question that has,
Yeah. So college curriculum versus something some outside project. So I think that you need to have a balance between both. That is the obvious answer. So like from the college curriculum point of view, like it is kind of the base to the computer science whole industry as a thing. Now, when you do some projects on top of it, it is going to use these concepts somewhere or the other. So you can think of some important courses like DSA or operating systems, or maybe object-oriented programming. All of these are going to play a vital role in whatever project development you are going to do. Whereas the um, other subjects you have, let's say some mathematics courses, so that is also going to be relevant at some point of time. Although like lot of courses are designed in point of view with some very specialized kind of fields as well. So if you are going into some something like more of mathematical modeling, I think those very difficult seemingly multivariate integration might also play an important role into that. So yeah, I would say like choose out your interest appropriately, focus on your curriculum in that sense, and then you need to have some projects outside the curriculum as well, so which will help you stand out from the general public there. When you go scout for some jobs or some other specialized courses as well.
okay, so that's that. And another question that we have is DSA enough to crack SD internships? Or I guess that's partially answered given that you do have to focus with a balance on projects as well as on DSA.
Yeah,
So,
balance is the
anything you'd
key.
like to add
But
on that?
yeah, so today like software engine like so also what I want to make out here is like uh, so you need not know all the stacks before you start. So before getting into some industry, you may not know some stack or some other stack. That is fine. So if you have a general kind of an idea, that is what DSA is testing at the end of the day. Like if you know how to build out systems, you know what data structure to use, how to like the general idea of problem solving, the learning a stack is easy. So projects help you out in having a grip beforehand, but yeah, it may not be absolutely necessary as well, as it seems. But yeah, you need to have some sort of a grip over coding in some language, or you should be involved with some sort of development aspect as well in order to get a better kind of a role there.
Okay, so that's true. Even I feel so. So now another set of questions, but it's a lot.
Okay.
So would you like to still go ahead with one and one, or I mean one question each, or would you like to choose from certain ones?
Yeah, I think we can cover the top row to for now.
Okay.
So graduation outside India. Uh, okay. So yeah, like definitely the country compensation differs, and that's because of the PPP ratio that we have. So that is the purchase power parity ratio. That means like in this particular amount, how much can you what all services can you own in India versus some other country in that particular amount. So due to that, you'll have some difference in the compensation aspect as well. But yeah, like it's not something which is outside, it is going to be in the same proportion as the PPP ratio stands. So that is, yeah, like balanced out in that sense. Yeah, I hope I answered that question appropriately.
Yeah, I think that's well answered. So another question that has come up is this is by through Lingu. Kudos to you. And give us guidance on what are the needs or skills one must have to pursue exams such as GATE, and what are the benefits of GATE exam and its uses in CSE branch.
Okay, so like skills to pursue a career path and also benefits of GATE. So GATE basically would lead you to master if you are going for a master's kind of a thing, or if you are aiming for some PUC companies. So for the software industry, I feel like GATE for a PSU, like if you want to enter a PSU company, that is okay, but there are many better opportunities outside the PSU domain as well. So if you are giving GATE, your main focus should be on the MTech part of it. Like if you want to get into some MTech programs or some MS programs into some of the renowned Indian colleges, then that is definitely the like that's the only way most of the colleges accept. And yeah, that is relevant. So for that, what you need to master is the course curriculum itself, which BTech is going to offer. So you need to have some good grip on the core subjects of computer science, and yeah, that is going to be very much in line with what you'll be studying as part of your BTech course program. So that would be enough, and like you should have a so your the application point of view also is more important in this kind of question. So you'll have lesser of theory and more of application oriented questions coming up in GATE. So that might be one thing to note.
So, moving on to the next question. I hope that's answered through. And moving on to the next question. Any notes or any tips on how to manage time in college? Because I guess that's what this question is aiming at.
Okay, management, time management, I would say like don't wait for the last moment for your deadlines to come through. Do it upfront whenever you have time, and you'll end up having a lot of time at the end of the day. So other important thing, like at least I figured out during my college days, is like try to attend lectures. If you attend lectures, you do not need to go back home and study at the last week of before the exams. So that has been the key for me at least. Uh, if you get a hold of the concept during the lectures itself, you would not need to even open the slides and go over it once again, and you can just brush off through looking at the higher level topics, or um, some of the key aspects of that particular thing. And it also helps you recollect things easily, like even after if you're looking at the same PPT after 2 or 3 weeks or months, you'll be able to go over it easily, quickly, and that should be sufficient for the exams as well. Yeah, otherwise enjoy your college days. So like you'll have to make time for it. You try to complete your all your assignments and all at the earliest, and you'll be ending up with a lot of time for yourself.
Yeah, so those are words to live by.
Not
So
a
I guess
difficult
we'll
words.
take up I guess we'll take up one or two last questions,
Sure.
ones that feel different. So, any pick, any interesting or
Mm.
favorite ones of yours here?
Okay, on the certification side, if you are I'll try to answer all the different sort of questions in a quick reply. So, if you go from a certification point of view, only the relevant topics will make sense. So, if you are looking for something which is something like blockchain or something, that might be an interesting thing. Although, what certifications we today usually see do not usually hold very significant kind of relevance here. More or less, if you are doing it for some interviews or something, the interviewer is going to identify if the interviewer has those skills in him or not. So certifications are just like uh, uh, to say that you have attended that, but your skills are going to define most part of it. So uh, focus on skill development rather than resume development for using those certifications. Mm.
Okay, so
So what other streams I think we already covered. So other than SD, you
yeah,
can look at some DevOps roles, some other interesting newer upcoming things. Um, Resume shortlisted. Uh, so okay, now here there are projects is definitely going to be one of the important things. Apart from that, if you are going for a job application or something, good internships will help. If you are going for good internships, some projects will help. You should be crisp at what you are good at. You should kind of point out all your skills and make sure that the job role you are applying for has the necessary requirements in your resume. So you should sort of customize your resumes based on the roles as well. At least have some portion of it into what the role is, role requirements say. uh, and apart from that, like try to read at it from a employer perspective, where what you have written might make sense to you, but for a third person, they might not really get what your use case was. So try to address that point of view, like what should they make out of you, those particular resume. Also try to do some sort of a peer review kind of thing, where they can point out your improvements, and that can be an iterative process.
okay. So that does it. And
Open source development, yes, it makes a difference. Crack remote jobs. Everything is remote right now, so yeah, any job you take mostly you'll end up having a remote job. Uh, Demand in the future years. Uh, yeah, that is something unpredictable. So the demand will stay unless and until there is new and newer innovation, new and there is more demand from a user aspect. For now, it's kind of the booming industry, but you never know. So if you look at some 10 years back, EC was kind of a booming industry as well. Uh, Everyone was thinking like will be coming with newer and newer computers coming in, the smaller and smaller chips coming in. It was to stay, but yeah, there'll be some ups and downs in every industry. So for now, like at least by the time you graduate and get some good experience, I see that the future is great for this particular industry. Mm. Individual small projects or big group projects? Okay, that's an interesting one. So I think both have its own importance. So when you do some individual projects, you are building it from scratch, whereas some bigger projects you'll need to collaborate and have some. Both will kind of involve you with different kind of skills, and I think both you should try both of them. Yeah, in the end, if you are going into when you'll go into the industry, you'll go into the second part of it, where you'll be working with a larger group and you'll be building some bigger services. So So you can start with some smaller services if you think like you need to build up some skills from a smaller stage, and then you can try to contribute to the bigger groups as well.
Again, invaluable information. So that being said, I guess more or less most of the questions have been answered from what I can look, from what I can see. Unless there are any more points you'd like to add here.
Mm, I I can't think of anything as of now. So mm,
Any last statements, concluding remarks, something that you'd like to leave this session off with?
yeah, so as I understand, like most of you are from the first and second years. So like people are often confused like how to start. So take smaller steps, I would say. Like start with something which has a low entry barrier. Try to directly install some new things, install some new stacks, try to write some maybe hello world equivalent codes and those things, and then try to bring up something bigger from there. But yeah, do not get scared by looking at the bigger and the more difficult aspects of these particular things. Uh, and yeah, like everything is easy if you take it one step at the other. So yeah, like you'll make out your way from this particular thing. The journey will be interesting, and like just take some initial steps to start for it.
Okay, so that being said, I guess that's a lovely last note to end this session. And that being said, I'd like to thank you from the
Pratik,
programming club side.
sorry to interrupt you, Mohanish. I have one question
Yeah,
for
no
Pratik.
issues.
Sure, sir.
Hello, Pratik.
Hi.
Thank you very much for joining with us. And I have one question specifically to you regarding usefulness of activities organized under programming club, because you are already witnessed those activities. So what are your views on this? Because our existing programming club team is doing excellent job, but that is from my point of view. But when you share with your juniors, then it's a different story. So what are your views on this?
Definitely. So, like, programming club has been an integral part of this institution since a long time. So, I remember my senior starting it and then I taking over it for a year as well. And since then, I seen this club grow, grow tremendously from that particular time. The participation, the number of activities, all of them have gone up, and even the apart from the scale, also the effectiveness, also the kind of topics they are covering are great. So you have like lot of I would say hands-on activities, as well as the learning kind of things, as well as some talks from some of the very prominent people coming in. So so that is great, and like I see it grow even further. The team is doing a great job, and also like it's your kind of supervision and kind of an input that you have given has brought up that change, I feel. So yeah, I think in the upcoming years I look forward for this team to grow more and do some newer and interesting things ahead again.
Thank you, Pratik,
Thank
for
you. Thank you
sharing
so much.
your valuable time and experience with us. And you are opener for 2022 for us. So this is the first event under Programming Club in 2022.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for joining with us. Over to you, Mohanish.
Yeah, so thank you, sir. Thank you, Pratik Bhaiya. Thank you guys for attending this event. I guess that's a wrap from our side. Unless there's anything anyone would like to say. In that case, no issues. Chalo, thank you, everyone.